Welcome to Unsuccessful. We're your hosts, Jen
And I'm Brandy, and this is the podcast where we admit out loud
that we suck.
So if life has ever felt like a dumpster fire,
You're in the right place.
well, let's get into it.
This week on Unsuccessful, we sit down with entrepreneur, business coach, and membership expert Paige Vandy. And trust us, this one goes deep. Paige opens up about the two major traumas that changed the entire trajectory of her life, including being sent to a residential therapeutic boarding school as a teen. We unpack how those defining moments shaped who she is today, how they influenced her drive as an entrepreneur, and why healing is just as important as scaling your business. We talk about resilience, community, spirituality, and the real story behind building a 7-figure membership business. This isn't just a business episode. It's about identity, self-trust, and taking your power back. Screenshot your favorite moment and tag us on Instagram. We want to know what really resonates. And of course, like, subscribe, and turn on all those notifications so you never miss an episode. Welcome to Unsuccessful, the podcast where we help you suck just a little bit less. Let's get into it.
So Paige, welcome. I just was taking a quick look at your bio, and I'll get you to kind of go into your story. How we connected was you were like, oh my God, I have the unemployed podcast and that sucks. And so I really relate to what you guys are doing.
Yeah. Okay. Where do I even start, man? So I started my business in 2017. I started as an online fitness coach. And from there, I just naturally progressed into business. And I would say I made the switch around 2019. And that kind of just happened from people being like, oh my God, you're growing so fast. How are you doing that? And those kind of just became the conversations that I liked having anyways. But at the end of the day, the one thing that really drove me all the time was really just helping people to create their own life. I mean, I came from, where are you guys from?
We're in Alberta, Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada.
Okay. So I'm originally from Red Deer. Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. So this is perfect because normally I have to explain this to people if they're in the States somewhere, but I worked in the oil field for a very long time. I worked in the well servicing industry, and I don't know if you guys are familiar, but I worked in the office. And what I saw a lot of the time was a lot of the women worked in the office and a lot of their spouses were in the oil field making money. So there was this very clear divide of who made the money. And something that I saw a lot of the time was that women were not doing the things they wanted to do. We're not so much as buying a lunch for themselves because, he's going to get mad. I just did this, or just living so small compared to their husband. Can we swear on this? We can,
Yes.
right? Okay. Because it's going to come out, but their husbands who are fucking doing whatever they were wanting in Grand Prairie or whatever at strip clubs, they were living such a different life, and these women were at home oh my God, I don't want to make him mad. I can't spend this. And I'm just fuck that. That is the most ridiculous thing. And how I got into fitness was just because that was what I was passionate about at the time. That was kind of my world. I was very into the bodybuilding thing, and I wanted to help women feel better about themselves. I wanted to just help people have something for themselves and not be so almost shy and mousy and unconfident because they don't feel good in themselves. So that was kind of how I started. And then when it came to business, it was the same thing. I was I want women to make money so they can actually live a life that they're obsessed with and not have to work these jobs that they hate or be in a marriage that they hate. There was so much of that I saw, and it was so fucking sad. And the only reason was because they just didn't make money. It all came down to women not making money. And I was just no, fuck that. That's not what we do here. And so that's kind of where Unemployed, which is my podcast and my brand, came from, is kind of a spin on just having a life that you're designing for yourself. You're not working for anyone else. You're working for yourself, and you're just doing whatever the fuck you want. And that's what my brand is about.
Well, I think we've talked a lot about burnout, and we've talked about a lot about perimenopause, hormones, all the things. We're both married with kids and
Both business owners.
And when we went through that really tough time, I think one of the first things that you do when things get tough is you're I need a job. Right? And so I did it. I put a whole bunch of resumes out there, and I didn't hear anything back. And then I know Brandy did the same thing. And I know so many entrepreneurs that have done the same thing. And then I saw Cody Sanchez post. She's like, I'm not employable. No one wants me working for them. I am not a worst employee. I'm too loud. I have too many ideas. I like to run the show. And I was like, yes, I get it.
Yeah, and I mean it's all about that. It's like there's so many opportunities now, right? With the internet and like literally you can turn anything into a job. And I think what scares people off is like that's not the normal. That's not the path that we're given. That's not like my parents wanted me to go to school and they wanted me to do X, Y, and Z, and that's what people in my family did. And that's not the like stereotypical idea of what success is. But at the end of the day, for me, it's like, how do you want to live? What do you want your life to look like? And that's what you have to reverse engineer.
So I want to back it up here. You obviously felt like you saw this happening. Obviously, women needing to step into their power, lack of money. There's that. Similarly to Jen and I, we're on the exact same wavelength. And especially myself in the spray tan business, because that's where I come from, and then built a beauty brand around that exact thought process of, start your own business, make your own money, and freedom of time and money and all of these things, right? That's what I did, basically just duplicating what I did. Kind of what do you think, where did that come from for you? Because it was triggering for you. So I'm curious if you've done the work, which I assume you probably have, or recognize, where did that come from? Where did that passion and initial, not everybody would sit in an office and see what you saw.
Yeah.
And then how to fix it, right?
Yeah. I talked to my therapist a lot about this, and there's so many factors. I think one of the things, so I'm not sure if you guys know this. I don't even think I have this in my bio, but when I was a teenager, are you familiar with the Paris Hilton documentary, like that school she went to and all of this?
Can you explain for our listeners?
Yeah. So there's these boarding schools, basically what Paris Hilton went to, and they're kind of for like troubled teens is how they explain them. They call them therapeutic boarding schools, and they're for troubled teens. And inside of these schools, basically it's just like intense therapeutic practices every single day, where it almost is like it's almost like a wearing you down type of situation. But scary part of these schools and what ended up happening. So to backtrack, when I was 15, I was sent to one of those schools. And how it happened was because I was in Canada, they couldn't legally take me. But what happened with a lot of the kids who were from the States, there would be these people called transporters, and they would come to these kids' house in the middle of the night, take them out of their bedroom. Obviously, their parents let them in the house, but they would take them because it's in the middle of the night. They're unexpected. It's easier to grab them. And so that's what happened with literally everyone who was in the States at some kind of level. For me, they couldn't do that because I was in Canada. So my parents had to tell me that we were going to Vegas to look at real estate and properties and all of this stuff. And I was like, oh, cool. I'm going to Vegas. I get to skip school. That's amazing. And what ended up happening is we got up really early one morning, probably like 5 or 6 in the morning. My parents drove me to go look at real estate, but really we went to like an empty Target parking lot so early in the morning that there was no one there. And we pulled up beside a car, and these 2 people got out, and they just took me. They took me out of my parents' car, and I remember trying to get out, and it was like police locks. So it was, I mean, I'm just like, wow, I'm thankful I didn't get taken out of my bed, but it's just so traumatic. And I ended up having to go to you have to do like a step up into the boarding school. So I had to go into like a wilderness program first, which was 2 months. It was in the Utah desert. You just live outside. You don't have tents, anything. Half the time I was there, the snow was like up to my knees. It was intense. And then you're kind of worn down after that. And then you're just like, oh my God, a boarding school, that sounds amazing. Like, yes, I'll go. Just get me out of here. So then I went to this boarding school in Montana, and that was just like, it was one of the most helpless feelings because you're just in intensive therapy every single day. You're doing manual labor. You're like digging stumps out of the ground. You're basically just like working for this school, which a lot of them are shut down now. And that's Paris Hilton's big movement, is trying to shut these down. And so I was there. And when I got out of that school, that was when I actually hit my rock bottom, or my first rock bottom. I've gone through so many, but that was when I hit one of my rock bottoms, was because I was like, holy shit. First of all, they told my parents that everything would transfer over to Canada, that I'd graduate, all this stuff. I got nothing. I basically skipped an entire year of school, had to go back to school in Canada, retake the year, was not with my friends anymore, didn't get to graduate. It was just like, it was so shitty. And when I went back home, I was obviously very traumatized by that. And I started drinking. I started doing drugs. I went back and lived with my parents, and I ended up being kicked out at 18 because I was going to the bars and not coming home. When I got kicked out, all of my friends were still in high school. I didn't have anywhere to go. And so the only place I had to go was to basically like these party people's house. They were all probably 30, 40 at the time. I was 18. They were doing drugs. And that was the only place I had to go because those were the people that I knew that lived on their own. And for me, that was when I felt really, really lost. But there was always just kind of something in me of like, this can't be it. This is not what I'm going to be. And that's kind of how I used and got into health, because it was almost like I would be partying every weekend, but then on the weekdays I'd go to the gym, and like still kind of was, maybe it was more probably so for me to tell myself like, okay, it's not actually that bad. But then I actually just started really grasping into that. And I kind of used fitness at the time as like this savior kind of life rope, honestly. And for me, it's like when I saw people who were just settling in their lives, I guess maybe that was triggering, because I was like, no, like you can do whatever the fuck you want. Like you can literally make your life however you want, and life's hard. You know what I mean? Like life's hard, but you don't have to make it harder on yourself, and you can have the life that you want. So I think that was something that was really big for me.
Okay, so I was really not expecting that.
And I was like, I don't know the last time I talked about this. I don't know if they know.
No, I'm so sorry that happened to you. First of all. Second of all, thank you so much for sharing that, because I'm going to get emotional. I've deep dived a little bit into some of these documentaries and watched some of these stories, and seeing how many people, men and women, who haven't survived because of the traumatic experiences that they went through. And your story, it's like how you say it, obviously you worked through so much of that. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us. Savannah Boda, so I'm in the aesthetics beauty world, and she's the Dallas esthetician in Texas, and she went to a similar program. And she now is has a multi-million-dollar business and really channeled that energy. And she talks a lot about that, in the strength, and kind of similarly, I mean, not 100% sure. Obviously it's very, very different, but just taking that and like channeling it and then doing something, good with it. Right. So she poured that energy into her business and building her business. So are you, in different ways.
Yeah. So. It is sad. I opened my Facebook the other day, and there's like a group. It's called Monarch Survivors. So like basically people who went to this specific school that I went to. And someone was posting in there the other day of like, does anyone have the names of people who have died since we like went to this school? And it was like, it wasn't even just like a chunk. It was like I was scrolling of names of people who have died from overdose, suicide, like just all of these things. And I don't know what the difference is. Like I know that it's so common for people who are in business or like doing big things to have really rocky paths or come from really humble beginnings or hard beginnings or survivors or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what the difference is. I don't know why some people go that route and some people, but it's very split. And it kind of seems like that group, and just like kind of keeping up with people who went to that school, you're right, like it's so split.
Yeah, you either crumble, go down, a different path, or you channel it and become super successful and empowering others and whatnot. Well, I think it's either fuel, like there's something in it, right? Like it's fueling your ambition. I realized my ambition was fueled by rage. I had people tell me this until I did mushrooms in Kelowna with two of my best friends.
Well, that's where I am right now. It's very popular here.
There you go. Yeah. So Rob and Gary with the Journeyman Collective, they're in Kelowna, and they do executive psilocybin journeys, and they're energy workers. So if you know them, and in one of my journeys, and I realized that really my ambition was driven out of rage for something that may or may not have happened to me when I was in like that grade 10 or so timeline in my life. Now, like, I'm curious. The $1 million question in my mind is, what happened? What was life like before? Why did your parents send you to this place?
And again, after lots of sessions, therapy, something that we realized is that there was just no communication in my house. None. I'm very close with my dad. He's one of my best friends now, but he was raised like my Opa, his dad was in the RCMP. My dad has three brothers. They're all in RCMP or corrections. My dad was a prison guard. They have that kind of just more like stern, like they're not raised to be just like emotionally there, even though my dad, for being in that job, was very actually way more than my mom. We'll get into that. But he was very like emotionally there. But it was more so like kind of like a dictatorship kind of relationship where it's like, you're the kid, I'm the parent, we're not friends. This is what you do. If you don't do this, you're getting in shit, kind of. And like the shit was not good shit to get into. My mom, she came from a very abusive background with her dad. He was very abusive. He had committed suicide. Very just like traumatic background on my mom's side. And with her, it was a really, really tough relationship, like very like barbed wire almost. And she ended up passing along some of that abuse to me as a kid. And everything was just very, I think of it, and what ended up happening was when I was in high school, I was obviously starting to go out like kids do, go to parties, all the things. But when kids were starting to go home, I was like, I can't go there. If they know that I went out, if they know that I drank, like anything, it would be so bad for me. So I would like try and where can I stay tonight? And even if I wanted to go home, it was kind of just like, where can I stay? I don't want to go home. And because our communication was so bad, they just thought I was out doing the worst things. And so it got worse and worse and worse as that kind of started to compile. I got a boyfriend that was a not good boyfriend for me, and I started going out with him more, and that caused more friction. And it just was like a pile up of high school years and bad communication. And they thought that that was where I needed to go. They thought that instead of kind of talking to me and being it, because at the same time, it's like, I don't blame it, at least not my dad. There was some stuff that happened with my mom that I found out later that contributed to it. But I think that he just didn't know how to handle it. He wasn't raised with that. He wasn't raised with the communication. He didn't know what to do. And I think that they just kind of did what they thought was best, and it ended up not being a good decision.
Well, that's kind of, after deep diving down the rabbit hole, that's what I've seen is really like what I remember too at the time. It's like, not you don't have to remember this, but everybody else has to remember this. We, at the time it was a different place. Society, the consciousness of everybody was in a different place. And then the media, like this was the silver bullet. This is what was going to fix your daughter, right? To fit that mold of what you were used to, right? And unfortunately, people like yourself were just completely in the crosshairs of that, and that's also like a part of what has shifted and changed, where we are today, right? And like with Paris Hilton coming out and with yourself, talking about this now and the actions that you're taking and have took since, right? You carry that with you in every interaction that you have with every single person, in how you relate to people, creating a sense of safety, right? For people, hearing people, listening to people, validating people. I'm sure of it. Like I just know. And so you're creating the change.
Yeah.
Now, right? So anyway, just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And also having a daughter now too. She's going to be 3. And as a single mom, we co-parent. So she does have her dad in her life. But it's just like for me now, I just feel such a responsibility to like all of these pieces, have the communication on point, like really be able to be that present parent. And then also just create a life where we don't have to worry about money being the factor of options, right? I think like that's such a huge thing too, is just money holding people back from actually having options. I know like for my mom's mom, who was in a really abusive relationship, that was hers. Like they're dependent on these men. And it's just, there's so many factors, and kind of like what you asked before, what would be the actual contributing factor to why you're doing this? I think there's multitudes. There's so many things, but really it's like just being able to have options, really being able to kind of create a life that you're proud of, a life that you actually love to live, and just have resources to be able to do the things that you need to do for yourself and for your family.
Do you have Do you have any type of issues with authority figures now that you're an adult?
For sure. And especially too.
Because I do too. And
Yeah.
kind of like similar, but not extreme. Yeah.
And I feel like what you were saying too before of like I'm unemployable, like not only have I just worked for myself for a long time now, but also like there's that. I could never, and I had a really hard time actually staying in jobs. And I think this is also something that's very common for people who just have that entrepreneur spirit, is like not being able to just kind of stay in a job for a long period of time. And have a boss and have someone telling you what to do. And yeah, I 1000% that, backed with also like how my dad raised me from being that like prison guard authority figure. Oh yeah, there's stuff there.
Yeah, I'll believe that. I feel that too.
What is your experience with that? I'm curious.
Well, I feel like I get like with what we do. So I did actually stay at my last job for a really long time. I was there for 13 years. But yes, the general manager and I never got along. My direct person and I never got along. It didn't matter who it was. We just would butt heads. But the owners, the owners just really let me do what I felt needed to be done to get the job done. And they loved that. So the entrepreneurs in the business loved me. Like I knew that I was always very safe. Not saying the general managers didn't, but they were more, they tried to control more of what I did and manage me and micromanage me. And they didn't know what I needed to do in a day to day to get my job done. I don't know if they really cared, but there was more managing and I didn't thrive under those conditions. I like to have someone, the creativity side and the creative side. And I believe I was more of a voice for the owners when they weren't there. So they were gone a lot, but I understood what they were looking for. So I could be that voice, right? So could the general manager, but again, I didn't like having someone to do it all. It makes me really uncomfortable. It makes me feel like I've done something really wrong and I'm really in trouble. And so building tiny homes in my business, when it's taken me a long time to work through it, but there is almost this almost instant defiance when someone tells me what to do. If it's a client, if it's our certification body, even if they're not directly telling me what to do and they're just kind of asking a question, I go into this protection mode. Like, what do you mean? No, that's not, did I do something wrong? And I start looking for if you screwed up, who screwed up, paperwork, pictures, whatever else, to try and justify and find every ounce of evidence that I'm right. I find that's a big thing, almost like OCD about it, so that I can prove my case. Now, 99% of the time, I don't need to prove my case. There's no case to be proven because they just asked a simple little question. Yeah. Where's this piece of paperwork or something? But I go into this hyper defend myself mode. I don't want to.
Yeah, I wonder what that is. I had that too, for sure. So where did curious then? Where did the unsuccessful come from?
Well, yeah. So we both had I
don't mean to switch the interview onto you, but now I'm curious.
I went through burnout for sure. My dad died and I got super burnt out. I didn't take time to grieve. Business got harder. Maybe it just got harder for me, and it was a really shitty time, a really shitty 2 years. I was exhausted. And then Brandy and I would talk about it. Our kids ended up playing soccer together and we'd sit and talk, and Brandy was going through some really rough stuff too. And they were really crappy times. So yeah. Here it is, right? I think what tends to happen, I think it's quite common in business, right? The ups and the downs, right? And I think that there's, the ups and the downs just in your daily business, the cycle, and there's micro failures and, that didn't work, or big failures, a lot of money, or, you've lost this, or, you're moving. And then you get to a point, where maybe there's things that happen. And I've seen this a lot in a lot of women in the last couple of years. And I don't know if it's a post-COVID thing too, or just our age group. I don't know what it is, but I've seen it a ton. There's a shift now, but it's we recognize that we're tired of fighting, right? Or then there's something that kind of came into our life that then just felt for me anyway, like a failure. So I had a big one, and a one that really attacked my identity and my value. I'm okay with little failures that I can control, having that control on, or the perception of control, I should say. Yeah. But when there's something that big that comes into your life that you can't control at all, and it's apparent, completely apparent, and you have to still continue to work through that. And that's kind of, I think, a little bit like that's where unsuccessful came from, was like both, like I know I felt this way. I'm not going to put the words in Jen's mouth, but feeling unsuccessful. Like also a cognitive dissonance in the way that what we were raised to believe is success isn't necessarily, we're trying so hard to reach that and we're not getting there. And so now we have to redefine, what does success mean? And so that's where unsuccessful came in. It's like redefining it. So we're really in like this like a reclamation, I guess, and a identity shift and a new chapter of redefining what success is, because it's not burning yourself guilt for one. And then really looking inwards and having these moments, I think, like for myself and Jen, where attacking, like I say, big things in our life, big pillars, big belief systems, where it's like, boom, there needs to be a change, there needs to be a shift that happens.
Yeah, that's so heavy.
Yeah, I think part of it too is just like, part of success is sucking, right? Yeah. That's the big thing, right? And that's what it comes down to. So put the suck in success and just helping people see, like everyone looks at our Instagram, people should be like, oh my God, Teacup's doing so good. Hey, you're doing so good. And I was literally like, I laid everyone off the day before and told them I was closing. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm not going to tell you what's going on the street, but people have no idea how hard are the failures. So we're talking about it here so that hopefully people, well, who knows, can just know that like the most successful people have had really shitty times. Yeah. And a lot of the stuff we do really sucks.
Yeah.
But then you look back and you're like, oh, it wasn't so bad. And got to hear because of it.
Yeah. And it's like, it crumbles everything that needs to crumble so that like your podcast can come out or whatever else. I know I had, God, what year is it right now? 2025. So 2022, my daughter was born and I had the exact same thing. It was like, I felt successful before that. And I was like on paper successful. And then I had a relationship come into my life in 2020. And it wasn't that relationship, obviously, that shows us, right? It's like these mirrors of what we need to work on. And I had something around not working on myself so deeply and instead trying to like fix other people, which obviously was also my business. And so I'm like, fuck, well, I didn't really realize it at the time. Again, after all this therapy I've gone through, realized it. But I picked a partner who it was like a blank slate for what the life could be. It was almost just like, oh, I see so much potential in you, but you're not doing it. Let me help you, kind of thing. And obviously that was a huge wound in myself and not really diving deep into my own work. And what ended up happening was it was the most abusive relationship I have ever been a part of. It was the absolute worst. We were on the verge of breaking up. We were living in San Diego. I'd moved to San Diego for a little while. We were living in San Diego. He was literally packing his stuff, going to get a plane back to Canada. I was going to keep the apartment in San Diego, or I was going to stay in San Diego. And I found out I was pregnant. And that's how my daughter Gray is now here. Looking back, I'm like, thank fucking God, because I can't imagine her not being here. But that was the hardest journey, because with that, it was almost like everything that I had been doing with business, all of this stuff just didn't matter anymore. All of a sudden, it was just like, oh my God, I'm having this baby. I'm going to do it alone. We're not going to be together. I have to go back to Canada. I have to find a house. I have to do all of this stuff. And when I was kind of going back, I moved back to Canada, not back to Alberta though. That's where I was going to go because my family was there. And I'm like, well, it makes sense, right? Have a baby where your family is. When I came back to Kelowna to get my stuff out of storage, I was just like, I can't go back to Alberta. No, I couldn't. I have to be here. I have to be by the water. I have to be in the mountains. Like, it's just kind of where I feel at home. And I was here for a long time before. And so at 20 weeks pregnant, I canceled the lease on my house that I had already gotten in Alberta near my family. And I decided to stay here by myself. I didn't have any family here, no partner support, and had my baby. And I thank God I had my business set up the way I had it, like running memberships. So I didn't really have to be on and working and getting on calls and all this stuff. Like, I still had money coming in. That was such a lifesaver. But at 2 months postpartum, it was like probably 2.5 postpartum, my ex ended up taking me to court And I had to go through all of this legal stuff. And I felt that I was at the lowest point of my fucking life where I just like nothing would help anymore. I used to have wine at night as like a little like, okay, well, this will help me. And I couldn't even do that anymore because I was getting so anxious from just not knowing what was coming in my email the next day from a lawyer or whatever. It was just like the wine was amplifying that, where I had nothing to do but like do deep work and do therapy and like get really, really into deep personal work. And that ended up being one of the best things that I could have really done. And I think it really helped me in my business now and how I work with people, and obviously working with my daughter, and it changed my life for the better. I don't have wine every night anymore and all these things. But it's funny that these like terrible moments that you just feel like you can't get through and you burn yourself out end up just really being a catalyst for what you're supposed to be doing and getting you on the right path.
But that's what this podcast is about too, is that really sucks.
Fucking sucks.
Doing the work.
It's so hard.
Yeah. The work for sure. Yeah, and getting through it for sure. Like I think especially something like what you were talking about too, because I'm assuming because I think there's a lot of very difficult things that happen. However, they resolve themselves quickly in life, but then there are things that don't.
Yeah.
And that's where it just like is a true testament to, I don't even know, like they say resilience. And I, for me right now, I'm really wrestling with resilience in that word, just where I'm at right now. I feel like it just gets tossed around and thrown around, and it's really raw for me because it's just like, I don't feel very resilient. Yeah, people are like, "Oh, you're so resilient."
It's the worst to hear when you don't want to hear it.
Yeah,
when you're struggling.
When you're struggling, right? So that's what's so interesting is like, yeah, that, and then the time, and I'm sure that it's like, okay, you know, like you say, the anxiety of like, you know, what kind of email am I gonna get? What's next on this journey? What's next in this, you know, taking me to court? Like, I'm just waiting for the next shoe to drop, right? And there's like, doesn't seem to be an end in sight. What do you think helped you through that? And coming out of it?
So it's kind of like funny because what helped me also didn't help me at the same time. So, okay, yeah, when I was going through that, I mean, I got so deep into just spirituality and like putting my faith into something outside of myself because that's all I could really do, right? And it helped me so much at that time because it allowed me to kind of see things clearer. I was doing a lot of writing. I was going to a lot of healers. I was going to therapy. I was going to all of these different things. I was really like opening up this stuff and working on it and spending time doing it. But why I say it also didn't help me was because I ended up just getting so immersed into it. And it's funny, I actually just today released an episode on my podcast about this, and I've done like probably 2 or 3 interviews on this topic lately. It's huge, and I think a lot of people are relating to this right now. But I don't know if you guys are in that space or if like you've been in like the soft girl era space online, or if you've seen it like homesteading, how everyone just is like, oh, yes, well, as women, like we're not meant to yeah, we're not meant to work really hard. We're meant to kind of receive and lean back. So when I started going to healers, more so like healers than the therapist who were telling me this, but when I started going to healers and all this stuff, a lot of the message that I was getting was like, you have been working so hard for so long. You are burnt out. You need to like sit back and receive. And because I was at such a terrible spot in my life where I was like, literally, I will listen to anything you say, just fix me kind of thing. I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I have been constantly in this state of like pushing myself for however long, especially once you get into business. Right? It's not glamorous. You're constantly pushing. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Like I need to step back. Maybe this is why things feel so hard. And I had a healer actually tell me your business is feeling hard right now because you're pushing so hard, because you're trying so hard. And I believed that because again, I was like, yes, fix me. I will do anything. And what helped me was it did help me kind of deal with what I was going through with my ex and the trauma that came from that relationship and like having a new baby and all that stuff, because I was kind of just putting my work off to the side and not really doing much. And again, I had a membership. So like that was not lucky, but you know what I mean? That was good. I didn't have to keep pushing. And what ended up happening was that I was letting business go so much that actually then started to make my life harder. And I started my business in 2017. I was always really proud of the fact that it grew every single year. I didn't have any dips. And I'm really honest about this on my podcast. Last year, when I kind of was going through like the thick of it, was the first year that my income ever dropped. And to me, that's you're used to a certain amount of income coming in and you have a certain lifestyle. And when that drops, it's like, holy shit, like this is actually what is making things hard. And so something that I actually had to realize was that even though I was kind of going into this like soft girl, receiving all the things because that's how my life was supposed to get better, that was actually making my life hard. And that's actually not who I am. I'm somebody who needs to push in my business. I'm someone who does have big goals. I'm someone who like thrives by having something like this and pushing something like this. And so I would say it was needed for that period of time. But where I'm at right now, and something I'm talking about a lot on my socials and podcasts as well, is like sometimes life is just hard because life's hard. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing anything wrong or that like you're pushing too hard or that you need to be more in your feminine and you're too much in your masculine or you need to like go soft girl or trad wife or whatever. It's like sometimes life is just hard and that's what it is. And as entrepreneurs, it's like we have seasons. And so that's something that, when I said earlier that like going to that therapeutic boarding school and all that stuff was one of my rock bottoms, this one that I just recently said was like my other rock bottom, where it was like I had to go through that. But looking back, I was just like, holy shit, I just like got sucked into this portal. And yeah, now we're able to really see it on the other side.
Yeah, but it also kind of gave you the space probably to see that, to recognize.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like it helped and it didn't. There's no, you didn't have a balance. And I didn't have a balance. And I do struggle with having balance in things.
Oh, well, I don't think there ever really is balance.
Yeah.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for the balance, and then I was waiting for
this conversation before.
Like, I feel, do you mind if I ask how old you are?
30.
Okay.
30.
So, we actually had our episode before this. We had another 33-year-old. I think she's 30 or 33.
Yeah.
32. Anyway, similar conversation. I'm like, I want to know what happens to you when you're 40. Because when I was 33, there's so many similar things. Still highly ambitious, pusher. If someone would have said you need to be more in your feminine energy to me then, I would have said the exact same thing that you just said, where it's like, I'm a pusher, I'm a doer. What I learned, I jumped into the spiritual side of things too, to fix problems in the business, to get the money, to get more clients, to get where it needed to be. But what I realized is I never stepped back from it. And so I was doing all this action. I was trying to like force a square peg in a round hole. And when I burnt out, when my hormones changed, whatever it was, when I turned 40, I literally stopped. And yes, I massively dialed back the business. But one of the reasons is because I realized that wasn't even in alignment with what I wanted. And I was chasing false success, something that just like people said I should be doing. I should make $10 million a year in revenue instead. And I had no emotional connection to it. No wonder it wasn't freaking working, right? I didn't actually want that for myself. So to me, the biggest thing is stop trying to control the things you can't control. And a lot of spiritual people, they'll say, just let it be, let it come to you. And don't focus on the how, right? There was a point where if one more person told me to stop worrying about how it's going to happen, I was like, I'm going to stab you. Don't tell me that. Like, tell me how to not figure out how, okay?
I get
like,
it.
that's
Yeah.
how it was. And then it really started to click. I just realized that it wasn't important. Like certain things that I was doing weren't generating what I thought was successful, because what I thought was successful is I want to do the least amount of work possible. Actually, I want to work to have fun. Work is my hobby, and life is taking care of my kids and getting groceries and making food and doing things like this, or, creating a web page for someone or a lead magnet. Like that's my fun. And I consider it work, and work has now become more fun because I really did let it go. And when you truly realize, or realize is not the right word. When we truly embody the spiritual side of life, that's where it changes. That's where you learn what letting go is, and letting. and being in your divine feminine and divine masculine. So I think that there's this knowing, doing gap, and there's full layers. So someone will tell you, you're like, I understand it, I get it, I know it, but you're not actually embodying it because you don't fully grasp how it's working for you now. And it could have worked for you 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 2 or 3 months ago this certain way, and it doesn't work that way anymore. So I think that's where that gap comes in, and it ebbs and flows. Like some days I just really get it and I can be in that, and other days drives me fucking crazy that I can't control this fucking thing. Even no, like you got to get over it. My brain's like,
And
you know,
seasons. It's like life has seasons. Business has seasons, life has seasons. And I like what you say about the chasing a success that you were told to have. Because at the end of the day, that's so on point, is we all just have to also understand, like, what is our success marker? What is actually going to make us feel like we're accomplished or our success? You have to have that vision. So I like how you said that.
And I wonder too, like for the women that you help become financially successful, do they want to be cared for? Do they want to stay at home? You know, is that okay for them? And if it is okay for them, I'm always interested, and I always wonder why. Is it because they don't think they're able? If they knew they were capable and able to bring in more, they want that, or would they still want to be at home making sourdough on Tuesday afternoon?
Yeah. And I think it's hard too, like with social media, especially if you're growing a business on social media, you're just going to come across all of these different ways of being. And I think that's like the conversation I've been having with so many people lately too, is they are like, oh, this is what I'm told I should have, like what you were saying, and this is what I'm going to do. And oh shit, that's not making me happy. I actually hate this. I'm going to swing the other way. And it's then I find like it's the back and forth and the swinging and the pendulum is what a lot of people anyways, will just end up being like, fuck it all. Like, I'm just done with this. Nothing's working. So yeah, I think it's so important that you do know what it is that you are working towards. And I think I really relate too. I mean, the whole reason that I do memberships is because I also don't want to work all the time. Like, I want to do what I love. And if I'm working 9 hours a day, which again, there's seasons, so that happens sometimes. Like, we're building out oh my God, I can't even think of it because my brain is so fried right now from so much work already this week. We're building out like a certification program for my membership. And that's one of those times where it's like, I am pulling 10-hour days sometimes, but that is also my thing, is I want to live a life where it's like I'm actually living it, and I want to spend my 3 hours or 4 hours a day when it's kind of just doing what makes it fun, and like working with people and working on the programming and all that kind of stuff. It's fun, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's like I defined what my ideal life looks like. And I know that in order for me to have that ideal life, this is what I need to do inside of my business. And I think it's also just staying so laser focused on that in the world of online business and building your business on social media.
So can you do a little self-promotion and tell us a little bit about what you do, who you work with, and how you help women?
Yeah. So typically I work with people who are already doing well in their business, who are wanting to transition from just like one-on-one coaching or services. I work with therapists, naturopaths, parent education guides, a lot of coaches, and anyone who's just been building their business on that one-on-one kind of consulting and wanting to move more into, like what we said, more of a freedom base, building a community, building out a membership program. So yeah, I help those people do that transition. Some people will continue doing one-on-one and then just like scale that back, or however that looks, and then go into just memberships. Or some people are like, you know what, I don't want to be jumping on calls anymore. I've been doing this for so long. This information could actually help a lot more people if I was able to package it in this certain way and build out a membership community for my business instead. So that's what I do. I'm like very, very focused on that now. I used to have some other programs where it was more so, oh, well, if you don't want to start a membership, we can build this and we can build it your one-on-one. But that was, again, looking at my life, what I want to do, where my strengths are, and the kind of life I want to live. we've just gone completely all in on that. So I have that membership, which is called $1 Million Memberships Club. I can give you guys the link for that if you want to include it.
Yeah.
And then I have my podcast. I have 2 podcasts, actually. I have the Unemployed podcast, which is kind of like this, just interviews with other people. I really like to get into the behind the scenes and just like the real stories of building business, and which you guys do as well. So very similar. And then I have my other podcast, which is called the $1 Million Memberships Podcast, which obviously is the same as the membership. And it's just a strategy-based podcast, just basically teaching you how to build a membership.
So you have a membership, teaching people how to do memberships and how to create their own.
The membership for memberships. Yeah.
Well, I mean, those that do should teach.
Well, so and if you want to build a membership, why not get into a membership to see how to actually do it? I find that that's like one of the best ways to learn too, is just to put yourself in that experience of being a member or a client of something like that. So you can see this is what I love. This is what I didn't love.
Yes.
Yeah. And seeing how they work. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So any last thing, what would be your one piece of advice for the people that you're working with to build their wealth and their vision and everything? What do you tell them? What's your biggest thing?
So when I look back, any time that I have been the happiest, any time that I have like seen the most success in my life without it feeling bad, because there's definitely been times where I've pushed and it hasn't felt good, but I've been like quote unquote successful. But anytime I look at those times of when it felt really good, when I felt like so in alignment, was when I was really using embodiment and just like embodying the life that I want and being so freaking clear. So something that I teach my members and talk about a lot on my podcast is something called $1 Million Mode. And something that I really like to get people to define is just like, what is your $1 million mode? And obviously you can take that how you want. It doesn't necessarily have to be $1 million business. It can be whatever is like your ideal success, right? What does that look like? And how can you really embody that today? What does that person do? When does that person wake up? What does that person's schedule look like? How does that person carry themselves, even like walking into a coffee shop? I find that when you can really get both of those pieces aligned, like how you're acting right now, and then also very much so understanding who you want to be, that's when it happens. You start making decisions in a way that that person would do, and it just happens. So that's something that I try and remember, and something that is just huge for me.
I'd say to add on to that, I think a lot of the time we're actually living our ideal life more than what we think.
Yeah.
And so if you just pause for a minute and go, wait a minute, I didn't get up in the morning and frantically check emails. Like that's living that ideal embodied life, right?
Totally.
So awesome.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, thank you so much, Paige. We'll put all of how you can follow Paige, reach out to Paige if you're interested in a membership. Thank you again for opening up, being so vulnerable, telling your story, and just a reminder for everybody for listening that we're on the podcast where we suck and so do you, but that's okay. We'll see you next time.
I love that. Thanks for having me, guys. It was fun.
That's a wrap on this week's episode of Unsuccessful. A huge thanks to Paige for getting real with us and sharing her story, from healing deep traumas to building a powerhouse membership business. If you want to learn more from Paige or dive deeper into her world, you can find her at paigevandy.com or hang out with her on Instagram at The Membership Muse. She's always dropping gold for entrepreneurs ready to scale. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. And if you loved this conversation, screenshot your favorite part and share it with us on Instagram. We love to hear from you. Until next time, thanks for listening to Unsuccessful, the podcast where we help you suck just a little bit less. Bye for now.